When Joseph Stalin died in March 1953, he ended his long and cruel rule as leader of the Soviet Union. He had been in charge since the 1920s and ruled harshly. He did everything he could to push his country toward industry and killed about 20 million people who were his enemies, or people he thought were his enemies. How did Stalin die, though? It took a long time for the ruler to die. When he passed out on March 1st, 1953, his staff and advisors took their time because they didn't know what to do without him. In the end, they called in doctors, but even the doctors were afraid to upset the ruler. As doctors used leeches and cold packs on Stalin for 4 days, his condition slowly got worse. Last but not least, Joseph Stalin died on March 5th. But even though a cerebral hemorrhage is mentioned as the official cause of Stalin's death, some people think that he was poisoned by one or more of his advisors who wanted to change his policies or make the Soviet Union better. In fact, Stalin's legacy fell apart under leaders like Nikita Khrushchev, who quickly started a program of de-Stalinization. Time has passed since then, making it even harder to figure out how Stalin died. Did he truly die of a stroke at the age of 74, or was something more sinister at play? From Joseph Vissarionis Yugashvili to the Man of Steel. Joseph Stalin was born in Georgia as Joseph Vissarionis Yugashvili and later became known as Joseph Vissarionovich Jugashvili. He was a young boy before he became the leader of the Soviet Union. Yugashvili was born on December 18, 1878, in Gori, Georgia, which was then part of the Russian Empire. He rose to power in a strange and violent way. He was a shy and angry kid as a child. He had smallpox as a child, leaving marks on his face, and an accident in his carriage had messed up his left arm. Also, Yugashvili had to deal with his controlling, drunken father, who beat his son and wife often. In the end, he found the key to both his fame and his fame in an unexpected place. Yugashvili began reading Karl Marx while he was a student at Tiflis Theological Seminary. His reading of Marx's ideas gave him ideas, and in 1899 he quit school to become a revolutionary. Yugashvili led labor protests and strikes, joined the Bolshevik Party, and met Vladimir Lenin. He soon changed his name to Joseph Stalin, which means Man of Steel. He became more powerful at the same time as the Bolsheviks. It was 1917, and Lenin took over the Russian Revolution. Stalin was made General Secretary of the Communist Party, and the young man from Georgia took over the power void that Lenin left behind when he died in 1924. As a way to get his country more industrialized, Joseph Stalin ruled the Soviet Union with a tight grip. Over the next 30 years, he made a number of 5-year plans with very high, some might even say impossible goals. He also sent political prisoners to the Gulag and started the Great Purge to get rid of anyone he saw as a threat. He led his country through World War II and put up the Iron Curtain between Eastern and Western Europe by the 1950s. By 1953, some people thought he was getting ready to start a new purge or even a new war. In January of that year, he told police to arrest many Kremlin doctors, most of whom were Jewish, and said they were killing Soviet leaders. He also gave the order to build 4 new jail camps in February. But the Soviet dictator never saw the killing happen, even if he planned it. He died in March of that year. Stalin's stated cause of death was a stroke, but some people think the time of his death was odd. How did Joseph Stalin die? Joseph Stalin called some of his advisors to his home, the Kuntsevo Dacha, a country house southeast of Moscow, on February 28, 1953. This was just a few days before he died. He got his deputy prime minister, Lavrentiy Beria, the head of the secret police, Nikita Khrushchev, the first secretary of the Moscow Regional Committee, and Stalin's defense minister, Nikolai Bulganin, to agree to come to the house. As soon as Stalin woke up, he would ring us, the 4 of us, and either invite us to see a film or start some long conversation about a question that could have been resolved in 2 minutes. Khrushchev later explained. In this way, there was nothing strange about this event. The men ate dinner, watched a movie, and talked about the continued interrogations. They drank late into the night and left early the next morning, March 1st. We said goodbye to Comrade Stalin and departed, Khrushchev recalled. I remember that when we were in the entrance hall, Stalin came out as usual to see us off. Well, we left in good spirits, since nothing had happened during the dinner. Those dinners did not always end on a happy note. Khrushchev waited all day the next day for another offer, but his phone never rang. That whole day, no one even checked on Joseph Stalin. No one knew that the dictator had stood up and then fell to the ground after what looked like a stroke. He stayed there until 10:30 p.m. when a worker came in and found him lying on the floor in a pool of urine. Stalin's staff put him on a couch and put a rug over him. But at around 1 a.m. on March 2nd, they didn't call a doctor. Instead, they called in his counselors. Khrushchev says that he and some other people went to Stalin's house but didn't see him. They said it wasn't suitable when the dictator was in such an unpresentable condition. They may have been afraid of how he would respond when he woke up. Other testimony, however, suggests that at least Beria saw Stalin. According to one of Stalin's guards, Beria demanded, "Why are you in such a panic? Can't you see Comrade Stalin is sleeping soundly? Don't disturb him and stop alarming us." It didn't matter which way they went. The four men left. They came back a few hours later, with Stalin still asleep. It was that time that he fell into an unusual kind of sleep. Even though Stalin's experts called in doctors, many of Stalin's own doctors had already been arrested. So, as the tyrant lay dying, he was cared for by doctors who didn't know much about his health. They had to examine him, but their hands were too shaky, remembered one of Stalin's guards. To make it worse, the dentist took out his dentures and dropped them by accident. They used leeches, cold packs, and complete silence on the tyrant. He didn't wake up, though. He passed away on March 5, 1953, around 9:50 p.m. How did Stalin die, though? Did he have a stroke when he was 74 years old? This is a question that scholars have been thinking about for decades. Some people think that one of the four men in Stalin's inner group poisoned him. The murky aftermath of Joseph Stalin's death. It was Nikita Khrushchev who took power after Joseph Stalin died. He quickly got rid of his bad feelings towards Stalin, telling people at the 20th Communist Party Congress in 1956 that Stalin was a despot with a bad cult of personality. Stalin had used repression and physical annihilation, Khrushchev told his fellow communists, not only against actual enemies, but also against individuals who had not committed any crimes against the party and the Soviet government. Stalin's body was even taken from Lenin's tomb and buried next to the Kremlin wall as part of Khrushchev's plan to de-Stalinize Russia. In the years that followed, his life and rule were reviewed and mostly blamed. But what about the death of Stalin? Is it possible that someone gave the tyrant poison? Some proof shows that Stalin died from poison. The official story of Stalin's death, which was given to the Communist Party Central Committee in June 1953, but kept secret for a long time, leaves out a few important facts. The paper says Stalin had a stroke on March 2nd, not March 1st. It also doesn't say anything about how Stalin coughed blood on March 5th. People who worked for Stalin may have changed the date to avoid being asked why they didn't move faster. But the stomach bleeding that happened before Joseph Stalin died could have been caused by poison. In fact, Western doctors who looked at the report, which said Stalin died of brain hemorrhaging, thought that Stalin's symptoms could have been caused by poison. They thought that the ruler might have been given a 5 or 10-day course of warfarin, which thins the blood. Khrushchev himself made hints that Stalin had been poisoned. Khrushchev wrote in his 1970 autobiography, Khrushchev Remembers, that Beria told another important boss, "I killed him. I kept you all safe." However, Khrushchev's story is mostly seen as politically biased against Beria. How did Joseph Stalin really die? We might never know for sure. He may have died of a stroke. He might have also done it himself, because his allies were afraid that he would start another purge or even a war with the US. Some or all of them may have put blood thinners into his watered-down Georgian wine and then just waited. We hope you liked this video. Watch another video here.